The silence before the storm. The battlefield was chaos. Explosions tore through the darkness of space as ships clashed in a brutal war. The Zarkonian Empire, feared across the galaxy, had launched a full-scale attack against the Draveri alliance. The Draveri were strong, but the Zarkonians were stronger. Their fleet was larger, their weapons deadlier. The battle had raged for hours. The Draveri forces were losing. Their defense lines were breaking. One by one, their warships were being destroyed. The Zarkonians showed no mercy. They moved through the battlefield like hunters, tearing through enemy ships as if they were nothing. Admiral Calix of the Draveri Alliance stood on the bridge of his last surviving battleship, the Valiant. His crew was exhausted. Their shields were failing, and their weapons were almost out of energy. The Zarkonian fleet was closing in for the final strike. Calix knew the truth. This was the end. He turned to his communication officer. "Send a distress signal. Maybe someone will hear us." The officer hesitated. "Sir, there is no one left." Calix clenched his fists. The Draveri had called for help before, but no reinforcements had come. Their allies had either been wiped out or had abandoned them. No one wanted to face the Zarkonians. Still, he gave the order. "Send it anyway." The officer nodded and sent the signal. A desperate call for help, sent into the cold emptiness of space. But Calix did not expect an answer. The Empire grows bold. On the other side of the battlefield, Grand Warlord Xyroth of the Zarkonian Empire stood aboard his flagship, the Dominator. He watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The Draveri had fought well, but they were doomed from the start. "Finish them," Xyroth commanded. His fleet obeyed. More Zarkonian ships moved forward, surrounding the last Draveri warships, their weapons charged, ready to deliver the final blow. Xyroth turned to his second-in-command, Commander Vrax. Another victory for the Empire. Vrax grinned. "The Draveri are fools. They should have surrendered." Xyroth laughed. "Surrender? No, we do not take prisoners. We take planets. We take fleets. We take everything." He raised a fist. "After today, the Draveri will no longer exist." The Zarkonian officers cheered. The Empire was unstoppable. Nothing could challenge them. Or so they thought. The arrival. Then, without warning, something changed. The battlefield, once filled with the roar of weapons and explosions, went silent. No one fired. No one moved. A massive energy signature had appeared on the scanners. Something was coming. Something big. Admiral Calix saw it first. His ship's scanners beeped wildly, detecting an unknown object emerging from hyperspace. His officers stared at their screens, their faces pale. "Sir, we are detecting a massive warship." Calix frowned. "Draveri." The officer shook his head. "No, it's human." Silence filled the bridge. The Draveri had heard stories of humans, mysterious, unpredictable, and dangerous. But no one had seen a human warship in years. They were a race that rarely interfered in galactic wars. So why were they here? The Titan appears. On the Zarkonian flagship, Xyroth also saw the readings. He narrowed his eyes. Humans? Vrax looked uneasy. Impossible. They never involved themselves in wars. But the readings did not lie. And then it appeared. A massive black warship emerged from hyperspace. It was unlike anything seen before. Its hull was dark, absorbing all light, as if it was part of space itself. It had no markings, no insignia. But it was massive, easily twice the size of the largest Zarkonian battleship. The Draveri officers stared in awe. The Zarkonians felt something they had never felt before. Fear. The battlefield stands still. For the first time in the war, no one fired a single shot. The Zarkonian fleet, once so eager to destroy, hesitated. The Draveri forces, once certain of their doom, felt a spark of hope. Then a voice echoed across all communication channels. It was deep, calm, and filled with power. This war ends now. Admiral Calix's breath caught in his throat. The human warship was not asking for peace. It was making a statement. On the Zarkonian flagship, Tyroth gritted his teeth. How dare they interfere? He clenched his fists. Destroy them. His fleet obeyed. Hundreds of Zarkonian warships locked onto the human vessel. Missiles, plasma cannons, and laser arrays fired all at once. A storm of energy filled space, heading straight for the mysterious warship. And then, the weapons vanished before impact. The human ship did not move, did not fire, did nothing. The attacks simply disappeared. The battlefield, once again, fell into absolute silence. And in that silence, everyone realized the truth. This was no ordinary warship. This was something else. Something terrifying. The power of humanity's warship. The battlefield remained silent. The Zarkonian fleet had fired everything they had. Hundreds of plasma bolts, missiles, and ion beams had streaked across space, aimed directly at the massive human warship. And yet, nothing happened. The weapons had simply vanished. There was no explosion, no shield impact, no counterattack. It was as if the human ship had absorbed the attack into the void. On the Zarkonian flagship, the Dominator, Grand Warlord Cyroth, clenched his fists. What kind of trick is this? His officers looked at their screens, confused. Sir, we don't know. Our weapons didn't miss, but they never hit either. It's like they were erased. Cyroth growled. Impossible. Keep firing. The Zarkonian fleet unleashed another wave of destruction. More missiles, more lasers, more energy blasts. The power released was enough to shatter a planet. But as before, nothing. The moment the attacks neared the human warship, they disappeared. Not absorbed, not deflected, gone. A deep silence filled the battlefield. The Draveri commanders, still barely holding on, watched in disbelief. Admiral Calix of the Draveri Alliance gripped his command chair tightly. His officers were speechless. What is that ship? One of them whispered. Calix had no answer. The warship speaks. Then the human warship moved. It was slow, deliberate. There was no urgency, no panic. It glided through the battlefield like a predator among prey. A transmission crackled through every ship's communication system. A voice, deep and unshaken, filled the airwaves. You were warned. The voice was cold, emotionless. Not a plea, not a threat. A statement. Cyroth felt a chill run down his spine. He had faced hundreds of enemies. He had never felt fear. Until now. Enough of this. Cyroth growled. If our weapons are useless, then we crush them. Ram that ship. The Zarkonian fleet obeyed. Hundreds of warships accelerated toward the human vessel, engines burning hot. They would collide at full speed. No shields could survive that kind of force. The Draveri officers watched in horror. A collision like that would destroy everything. Admiral Calix braced himself. They're going to. The human warship finally acted. A single shot. Without warning, the Titan, as it would later be known, fired. There was no grand buildup, no charging sequence, no delay. A single blue beam of energy erupted from the Titan's main cannon. It was silent, no roar, no explosion, just pure light moving faster than anything ever recorded. The beam passed through the incoming Zarkonian warships. Not at them, through them. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a chain reaction. One by one, the Zarkonian ships disintegrated. No fire, no debris, no escape pods, just nothingness. Like they had never existed. The battlefield, once filled with the might of the Zarkonian fleet, was suddenly empty. A new kind of fear. The surviving Zarkonian ships came to a halt. The Draveri stared in stunned silence. Cyroth gritted his teeth. Half his fleet was gone. Vanished in a single shot. This wasn't war. This was something else. "This isn't possible," Vrax whispered, his voice shaking. "No weapon can do this." Cyroth wasn't listening. His eyes were locked onto the black warship, his mind racing. What are the humans? The choice. Then, the human warship spoke again. "Leave. Now." 3 words. A command, not a request. Cyroth hesitated. He had never run from battle. The Zarkonian Empire never retreated. And yet, he looked at his remaining fleet. He had never seen his officers so afraid. The silence on the bridge was louder than any explosion. The Draveri were no longer his enemies. The humans were. Cyroth's jaw clenched. He had to make a decision. Stay and fight, or retreat and live. For the first time in his life, the Grand Warlord of the Zarkonian Empire chose to run. Fear spreads among the enemies. The Grand Warlord Cyroth had never felt fear before. But now, as he watched the battlefield, as he stared at the impossible human warship that had erased half his fleet with a single shot, he felt it. A deep, crawling fear. His empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. He had crushed entire civilizations. But never, not once, had he encountered something like this. The Zarkonian fleet, once proud and confident, was frozen in place. No one dared to fire. No one dared to move. Then came the human's voice again. "This is your only warning. Leave. Now." The voice was calm, but absolute. Cyroth's hands tightened into fists. His empire was built on domination, on strength. And yet, half his fleet was gone. The Titan had fired once, just once, and in that single moment, it had done what no other enemy had ever done. It had broken the Zarkonians. Panic among the Zarkonian fleet. The silence did not last. The lower-ranked Zarkonian captains began shouting over comms. "We must retreat. This is madness. We cannot fight this. Grand Warlord, give the order to withdraw." Cyroth's pride screamed at him to silence them, to remind them who they were. But he could see it in their faces, hear it in their voices. His fleet was on the edge of collapse. Zarkonians did not run from battle. But this was not a battle. It was a massacre waiting to happen. His second-in-command, Vrax, stepped forward, voice low. "We cannot win, Warlord." Cyroth turned sharply. "Are you suggesting we flee?" Vrax hesitated. Then, for the first time in his service, he spoke against his leader. "No, I am saying we survive." For a long moment, there was silence. Then, Cyroth gave the order. "All ships, fall back." The Draveri's shock. On the Draveri flagship, Admiral Calix and his officers could not believe what they were witnessing. The Zarkonian fleet was retreating. Not regrouping, not repositioning, running. This was the first time in history that the mighty Zarkonian war machine had chosen flight over victory. And it was because of one ship. One human warship. Calix exhaled slowly, trying to steady his thoughts. "Did we just win?" His second officer, still in shock, whispered, "No, sir, we didn't." Calix turned to him. Then what happened? The officer's eyes remained locked on the black warship. "They let us live." The Titan moves again. As the Zarkonians turned their ships, preparing to flee into hyperspace, the Titan finally moved. It glided forward, slow and deliberate. The remaining Zarkonian ships, still within range, froze in fear. Was it about to fire again? Was it going to finish them? Grand Warlord Cyroth felt a shiver crawl down his spine. But the warship did not attack. It simply turned slightly, shifting its massive hull toward the Draveri fleet. For a moment, Admiral Calix felt an unspoken warning. The message was clear. This was not an act of friendship. The Titan had not come to save the Draveri. It had come to end the battle. Nothing more. The human warship watched, waited, and the Zarkonians, once the terror of the galaxy, fled like prey escaping a predator. The message to the galaxy: Hours later, news of what had happened spread across the stars. The Draveri transmitted their battle footage to every known system. The world saw what had unfolded, how the Zarkonian Empire had been humbled, how their greatest fleet had been defeated without a fight, how they had run from a single human warship. And the name of that warship, Titan. It spread like wildfire across every species, every government, every hidden world. The humans had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The aftermath. On the Zarkonian homeworld, Emperor Malachar watched the footage in silence. His throne room was filled with his generals, his warlords, his advisors. None of them spoke. They had just witnessed something they could not explain. Finally, the Emperor turned to the room. "Tell me." His voice was cold, quiet. "What do we know about the humans?" His intelligence officer swallowed nervously. "Sire, there is very little. They vanished from major conflicts centuries ago. We believe them to be insignificant." Malachar's eyes narrowed. Insignificant. He gestured to the screen, where the Titan hovered over the battlefield like a god of war. "That," the Emperor said, "is not insignificant." A long silence followed. Then, the Emperor spoke his next words carefully. "We have made a mistake." A heavy weight fell over the room. The Zarkonian Empire, rulers of the stars, had just realized a terrible truth. They had awakened something they could not control. The last stand of the Zarkonian fleet. The Zarkonian fleet had fled. The once mighty conquerors of the stars, feared across countless worlds, had turned and run from a single human warship. But not all of them. A desperate gamble. 3 Zarkonian dreadnoughts remained behind. Their captains, veterans of countless battles, refused to accept humiliation. To retreat was disgrace. To surrender was unthinkable. And so, with nothing left to lose, they made a final, desperate decision. They would sacrifice themselves. If the Titan could not be destroyed by weapons, then it would be destroyed by sheer mass. A direct collision. A full-speed ram at maximum velocity. If they succeeded, they would drag the Titan into oblivion with them. The charge begins. The 3 massive warships roared to life, their engines burning bright. They broke formation, turned sharply, and accelerated straight toward the Titan. Their commander sent a single message to their fleet: honor through destruction, glory through sacrifice. The remaining Zarkonian ships, still fleeing, paused. Some whispered that this was madness. Others called it bravery. But all of them watched, waiting, hoping. The Draveri's warning. On the Draveri flagship, the valiant Admiral Calix saw the approaching dreadnoughts. His officers gasped. "They're going to ram the Titan." Calix's mind raced. "Open a channel. Warn the humans." The communications officer hesitated. "We don't have their frequency, sir. We don't even know if they can hear us." Calix clenched his fists, then broadcasted to open space. The message was sent. Titan. Evasive action. Zarkonian dreadnoughts on collision course. But there was no response. The human warship did not move. It simply hovered in place, its black hull absorbing the light of the stars. It was as if it didn't even care. The moment of impact. The Zarkonian dreadnoughts were seconds away. Their engines screamed as they pushed beyond their limits, their hulls shaking under the sheer pressure of acceleration. The lead ship's captain, his mandibles clicking in fury, growled, "Let them fear us one last time." They were almost there. 500 kilometers, 200 kilometers, 100 kilometers. Impact was inevitable. And then, the Titan disappeared. The impossible maneuver. It didn't jump to hyperspace. It didn't fire its engines. It simply vanished. The Zarkonian dreadnoughts, locked into their course, had no time to react. The 3 warships, once symbols of terror, collided with each other at full speed. The resulting explosion was unlike anything ever seen before. A massive shockwave tore through the battlefield, scattering debris in all directions. The Titan reappeared a moment later, untouched, unharmed, hovering where it had always been, as if the attack had never even happened. The Titan's final move. The remaining Zarkonian ships, witnessing the utter failure of their final gamble, panicked. The Grand Warlord Cyrov, still watching from his retreating flagship, felt his claws dig into his command chair. "What? What is this ship?" he whispered. No answer came. Then the Titan turned toward the last Zarkonian forces, and it fired. The true power of the Titan. This time, the Titan did not use a single precise beam. This time, it unleashed its full arsenal. Blinding light erupted from its weapons. Columns of pure energy tore through the void. It was not a battle. It was an execution. One by one, the remaining Zarkonian warships vanished into oblivion. Each shot was instant, effortless, unstoppable. The Zarkonian war machine, once feared across the stars, was being wiped from existence. And the Titan, it remained silent, cold, unmoving, like a god passing judgment. The war ends. The last Zarkonian warship detonated, its fragments drifting into the void. And just like that, the war was over. The battlefield, once a storm of chaos and destruction, was now silent again. Only one ship remained, the Titan. The Draveri watched in awe. The Zarkonian Empire, once invincible, had been brought to its knees. And the humans? They had won without ever speaking a single word beyond their warning. The Titan's departure. For a long moment, the Titan remained still. Admiral Calix, heart-pounding, hesitated. Should he try to contact them? Should he say something? Before he could decide, the Titan moved. Slowly, it turned away from the battlefield. No words, no explanation. Then, it vanished. Not a hyperspace jump, not a warp. One moment it was there, and the next, it was gone, leaving behind only silence and an entire galaxy left to wonder. The legend begins. The battle footage was transmitted across the stars. Worlds watched in disbelief. For the first time in history, the Zarkonian Empire had lost. But it was not the Draveri who had won. It was the humans. And now, every empire, every government, every warlord across the galaxy had only one question. What else were the humans hiding? The Zarkonian Empire falls. The news spread like wildfire. The Zarkonian Empire, the most feared force in the known galaxy, had suffered a crushing defeat. Not from a long, drawn-out war, not from a rebellion. From one single human warship, the Titan. It had appeared from nowhere, shattered the Zarkonian fleet, and vanished without a trace. And the galaxy was left in fear and wonder. The Zarkonian homeworld trembles. Deep in the Zarkonian capital, Zarkin, Emperor Malachar sat in the vast, towering halls of his war palace. He had ruled for over 3 centuries. He had conquered more worlds than any emperor before him. But now, he sat in silence. The battle footage from the Draveri had reached him. He had watched every second. Again and again. He had seen his once unstoppable war fleet annihilated. He had seen his Grand Warlord Cyrov retreat like a coward. And he had seen the Titan. He gripped his throne tightly. His claws dug into the metal. The whispers in the court had already begun. The humans. What are they? Why did we never know of such power? Should we surrender before they come for us next? That last whisper made his blood boil. Surrender. He spat, his voice a deep, growling storm. The Zarkonian Empire has never surrendered, and it never will. His generals stood in tense silence. Finally, one of his intelligence officers spoke. "Sire, we need to understand what we are dealing with." Malachar's eyes burned. "Then find out," he said coldly. "Find everything. Every file. Every record. Every trace of their technology, their ships, their history." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Find out where they are hiding. The war against humanity had just begun. The galaxies shock. Across the stars, the Titans' actions rippled through every civilization. On the peaceful worlds of the Kilari Republic, leaders debated in hushed voices. We thought humans were harmless, that they had withdrawn from war. We were wrong. On the crime-ridden moons of Corin's Rift, warlords whispered in fear. One ship destroyed an empire's fleet. What happens if the humans decide to wipe us out next? And on the remote, hidden colonies of the Sol Expanse, where humans had remained quiet for generations, something changed. For centuries, humanity had avoided war. They had built their own worlds, far from the conflicts of alien species. But now the galaxy knew their power. And with that knowledge came a choice. Would humanity remain in the shadows, or was it time to step forward as rulers of the stars? The hunt for the Titan. The Zarkonians would not sit idle. The Empire's best minds were put to work, analyzing every detail of the Titan's appearance. Where had it come from? What was its power source? Was it one of many? The thought terrified them. If there was one Titan, there could be more. A galactic bounty was placed. Any species, any mercenary, any pirate who could bring information about the Titan would be rich beyond measure. Across the galaxy, spies and informants scrambled for answers. But the Titan, it was nowhere to be found. As if it had never existed. Humanity's silent response. In a darkened chamber, deep beneath the surface of an unknown world, a council gathered. Not a government, not a monarchy, but the leaders of humanity's secret fleet. The Titan had done what it was meant to do. It had announced humanity's return. A man in a dark uniform, standing at the head of the table, exhaled. His voice was low but firm. They were never ready for us. A woman beside him nodded. The Zarkonians will come looking for us now. We know, the man replied. Let them come. He looked at the holo display in front of him. There, floating above the table, were hundreds of ship designs. Titan was just the beginning. Humanity was ready. The message to the galaxy. The Zarkonians were reeling. The galaxy was whispering. And humanity. Humanity was waiting. The battle had ended. The Titan had vanished. But the echoes of its appearance shook every empire, every ruler, every warlord in the known universe. No one could ignore it. No one could explain it. And worst of all, no one knew where the humans were. The Zarkonian Empire's next move. Emperor Malachar stood before his war council. The holo display in front of him still showed the last image of the Titan before it disappeared. His generals, once full of arrogance, were now tense and uncertain. The fleet is demoralized, one of them admitted. Our warlords question if we should engage the humans again. Malachar's jaw clenched. We have conquered thousands of species, and now they fear one ship. He slammed his fist against the table. This is unacceptable. His intelligence officer cleared his throat. Sire, if I may, we do not know if the Titan is unique, if the humans have more of them. Malachar's eyes darkened. Then we are already at war. A deadly silence fell over the room. Then he made his decision. Send a message to the galaxy, Malachar ordered. Let them know that the Zarkonian Empire will not bow to ghosts. He turned to his warlords. I want every world, every species, every outlaw and mercenary looking for humanity. I want answers. One of his advisors hesitated. And if they do not find them? Malachar's eyes burned with cold fury. Then we burn every world that harbors them. The Zarkonian Empire had made its choice. The galaxy holds its breath. For the first time in centuries, the great empires of the galaxy did not know what to do. The Kilari Republic debated in their high councils. If the Zarkonians go to war with the humans, do we interfere? Interfere? We don't even know if the humans are willing to negotiate. We know one thing. They destroyed an entire fleet in seconds. Do we want to be on their bad side? The Valeri Syndicate, masters of interstellar trade, closed their borders. If the humans are back, we must prepare for an economic shift. We must find them before the Zarkonians do. And then there were the rogue factions. Pirates, mercenaries, bounty hunters. The promise of Zarkonian wealth for information on the humans sent criminals racing across the stars. But no one could find them. No human colonies. No outposts. Nothing. It was as if humanity had become a myth. The Draveri's secret message. Admiral Calix sat in his private chamber aboard the Valiant. The Draveri had survived because of the Titan. He owed them his entire species. But what troubled him was not their power. It was their silence. He had sent multiple messages into the void, thanking them, asking for contact, offering peace. He received no reply. But one day, something changed. A single, short transmission arrived. It was audio only, a voice he did not recognize. "You are welcome." That was it. No name, no coordinates, no demand. Just 2 words. And that was all he needed. Because now he knew the truth. The humans were watching. And they were choosing who to speak to. The awakening of humanity. Deep in the hidden systems of Sol Expanse, the Titan returned. It glided into a vast, armored space station, a structure so massive, so advanced, it made even the greatest Zarkonian warships look primitive. Inside, a council of human commanders watched the galaxy's response. Every intercepted transmission, every government's reaction, every bounty placed on their heads. The world now feared them. And that was exactly what humanity had planned. A man in a high-ranking uniform turned to his fellow officers. "The Zarkonians are searching for us," he said. "They will burn planets to find us." Another officer smirked. "Let them." The commander nodded. "It's time to let the galaxy know the truth." A massive fleet of human warships loomed beyond the station, hidden behind cloaking fields. Each one as powerful as the Titan. Each one waiting for the order. The commander gave a simple nod. "Send the message." Moments later, every empire, every fleet, every warlord in the galaxy received a single transmission. A deep, calm voice spoke. "You looked for us. Now, we are here." The galaxy's reckoning. The reaction was instant. The Kileri scrambled to open negotiations. The Draveri watched in awe. The rogue factions tried to vanish into the shadows. And the Zarkonians. They knew what had happened. The humans had never been hiding. They had been waiting. Waiting for the galaxy to make the first move. And now, the game had begun. Not of war, not of diplomacy, but of control, because humanity had returned. And this time, they would not be ignored.